Hello world, this is GT from atunes.net. I'm also a guest contributor for MTV Iggy. I just wanted to welcome you to my very first vlog. Basically, I want to kick off the series, talking about the very deliberate crossover by Asian artists into the market here in the US. This year alone, we've already had debuts from Seven, Boa, Wonder Girls, Utada, just to name a few, and they're all really trying to make an impact here. If you were to go to various online, forums, you see a lot of negative comments about them from Asian Americans here in the US saying, oh, they haven't made that impact. I don't see them on the Billboard top 10, even the top 100. I guess what we're looking for is the mainstream success, but I kind of wanted to touch upon that because if we were to dig deeper, it may not be that the industry isn't ready for these people, it may be that we're not ready for them. And if that's the case, I just wanted to take a deeper look into that. But first, I just wanted to start off by talking about an article I read on You Offend Me, You Offend My Family. It's entitled, Hollywood and Asians, Why Protests Alone Won't Do Anything. This article was talking about how the author was having a discussion with a friend of his who was heavily involved in demonstrations and protests against Hollywood and various movie production companies. They really want to get the point across that Asians and Asian Americans were underrepresented and misrepresented in Hollywood feature films. As the conversation progressed, the author discovered that his friend, who was really involved in this movement and all these protests, which is for a good cause, really hadn't seen an Asian American film himself, or at least a film that was directed by and primarily starring Asian Americans. And it kind of touched upon a point that a lot of us have these ideals, Asians aren't represented, right? But when it comes down to it, I think a lot of us aren't really supporting these Asian American acts. And later on in the article, the author wanted to express that he didn't really believe that these movie studios had an agenda against Asian Americans and Asians in general. It's just that there was no market for these independent Asian films that do represent them correctly. There was no market or reason for them to really stress, because if the Asian American community themselves aren't, buying into these films and aren't going to see them, then who is? Hollywood's going to follow the money, and if there's no money in that, then what incentives do they have as a business to market more heavily towards Asian Americans and Asians? So I guess my question is, are we doing the same thing for music, where we're complaining that Asians aren't properly represented in the media, in MTV, VH1, etc., but really when it comes down to it, is it that we haven't provided that market for them to utilize and market to? Are we not consuming what Asians and Asian Americans are putting out in the market? For instance, I recently came across a statistic from a study held by the Asian American Arts Alliance, and it stated that 60% of Asian American artists in New York earn less than $10,000 a year from their art. And the thing is, New York has the second highest population of Asians in the United States, meaning that if these artists can't make it here, where can they make it? Because obviously the community isn't fully supporting them. So imagine trying to live off $10,000. The cheapest car in America is the Hyundai Accent, and that has an MSRP of like $9,970. Yeah, I googled it. And you'd have $30 to live off there for the entire year if you were to buy a new car. In fact, with $10,000, you could even fill up your iPod. So if you take a 160 gigabyte iPod, that equals something like 163,840 megabytes, and let's say each song is an average of 5 megabytes, that means you could fit roughly 32,768 songs on there. And at 99 cents a song, that's going to equal roughly $32,440.32. So, you're not even filling up a third of what your iPod can hold. And the whole thing about the iPods kind of leads me to the next thing, where I'm sure many of us don't buy all our music. I think the way we consume media has changed a lot from even 5-10 years ago, where we can sample almost anything that we want. We have the opportunity to be exposed to so much media, whether it be legally or illegally. Now, we have the ability to preview almost anything. Unfortunately, a lot of us have the tendency, including myself, where we preview something and we download it, but that's our copy. That's that's what we use. That's what we're going to throw into our MP3 players and into our cars. But if you find an artist that you like, if you find an album that you like, even if you already bootlegged it, you got to go out and support that artist. Otherwise, they're not going to live. So, I think it's really up to us, the consumer, where, we got to start that market. Where if we're buying the music, the merchandise, the t-shirts and catching shows, then yeah, money does talk. So I'm not sure if we can count on some artists from Asia to cross over here into the States to make a big splash and really open up the doors for, and opportunities for other Asians and Asian Americans. I think it's really more on the shoulders of us, the consumer, shoulder on us as a community to support, these people. Because, there definitely are artists in our communities that you can support. There's the Far East Movement, Roscoe O'Malley, Jennifer Chung, David Choi, Decipher, Johnny Flo, A. Lee. There's just so many to name. And I'm not saying that we have to buy any and all media just because it was created by an Asian American or an Asian artist. But I am saying support the artists that you do like. And really, whether they be Asian or not, you gotta support good music. But who knows, maybe someone like the Wonder Girls will take the world by storm. But realize that there's a lot of other artists out there, and they need your support too. Because I think at the end of the day, it's going to be apathy that killed the Asian American star.